And welcome, Karen, to On the Fly episode 2. Stoked to have you join us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
How have you been doing?
Well, pretty good. Ultimately, being a Victorian, challenging times, but just getting through it and finding a way through each day. Each day is different, but making it happen.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, we connected not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, off the back of, I connected with ACS, Australian Computer Society, do amazing work in the country, which you're part of. I reached out to Michelle, thought she might be know someone who'd be great to come on the show, and then she kind of was like, "Hey, why don't you get Karen on the show?" And so we're here now, and I'm stoked to have you here. And I don't know, tell the listeners, and also for my own reference, I know transformational change is something you're a subject matter expert, but tell me a little bit about your tech story. How did you get into tech? Where was the beginning? What was the point in time where you're like, I want to do this?
Well, it goes back a little while, but it was actually ironically about transformational change now in a different sense. But way back then, I was about 12 years old in primary school, last year of primary school, bored out of my brain on a weekend on the country farm, had nothing to do. And my older sibling was looking at uni courses. So I actually read the uni offering of the book of all the courses you could do in uni because I had nothing else to do. From that moment, I worked out that I wanted to be in ICT as an industry sector. I thought that the element of change was a pathway I could go into that always had diversity and aspect of, unlike accounting or economics, not necessarily having a study path on something that was consistent, but ICT was something that was different and definitely had a change element into it. So I was pretty young when I decided tech was the sector I wanted to be in, and it was because there were so many different elements to it. So this long journey from there to here, I ultimately still about transformational change, and I love it. I've been in it my whole life. It's given me a hell of a lot of different experiences, broad scope along the way, and no day is the same. Wasn't then, isn't now. But ultimately, there's still a technology element to everything we do.
Yeah.
And definitely been a very varying degree of aspects of what got me into tech. And the people I've met along the way, you mentioned Michelle, met her and been involved in different aspects, but certainly has been a varying journey for me. And, not in the traditional sense of just computer science for technology. Definitely it's been very broad, and I'm not a techie. So I'm not
another
technical.
one. I found another one. I was going to ask you if you're a techie and whether or not your passion was around change and improvements, and then the tech came later on, or whether or not, like, how did you get it to be, about change, transformation, and tech all at once? Like, what was it about tech specifically that aligned that for you in that transformational space? Because I think about transformation around people growing, businesses growing, transformation from that sense. So I'm curious to hear it from your sense.
Yeah, I guess I would summarize my career, which is a few decades in, I did start on a technical element. Okay. My journey did start at the technology lens, really around, I came out of uni doing business, but focusing on ICT as a major, but I started in the employment pathway around technical elements of technology in a software sense and hardware aspect. Yeah. But I got pretty bored with that pretty quick. And I realized it didn't matter whether you had the best or the worst technology. So I looked at process and methodologies and how things come together. A bit of an engineering mindset, somewhat taken off the farm. You've got to be inventive. And so I spent a little time on the process side and looked at how you do things. I pretty quickly worked out it didn't matter if you had the best or worst technology or processes. It was all about people. So the majority of my career has been people using technology to enable business and governance and education and employment. And all of that is change, and how the world changes, the industry changes, technology ultimately changes, which is why I love this aspect. but I didn't stay techie very long. I realized it was all about people. And so loving that aspect of how people use technology to transform outcomes for customers, for business, for people.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
So obviously you've learned through going through and working in a number of different roles, and it sounds like now you also do some facilitation, right?
Yeah, so the element of different roles and what that means in doing your job in technology can have really broad experiences without being technical. And I've worked in different environments of using technology to enable outcomes on a global scale or a local scale. Now focusing on a community and an environmental aspect. The different aspects of people dynamics and who you meet along the way and the friends you make for life. The techies you see, the amazing people, very clever, and having different aspects of roles. It's not necessarily about the titles anymore, even in the technology industry. It's about the experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, isn't that what, like I think about all those things, and I think about customer experience and how important that is, and if you're running a business. And then I also think a lot around like being kind as a human to other people. And, you know, at the moment with COVID going on, we wear masks when we go out, if we're in Victoria, right? And you go out, and I always like to, in any of when I go out and walk around and speak to someone, I go to the shops, I like to leave people smiling and with a bit of a laugh. And sometimes I have to do it at my expense, but I always like to have an engagement where I leave that other person feeling better about themselves or the situation than what they were when I came to them. And I'm across the board. And, you know, my ex-wife used to like cringe, and my son would go, "Oh, Dad." But at the moment we can't do that, right? And well, we still can, but it's not as easy to. And so when you're talking about people and everything coming back to people, it's so true. Yet we're in this industry of tech and automation and efficiency and productivity, and yet everything comes back to people. And you've hit the nail on the head so well. And so you would have
and connections, right? So those connections on the people side and the human side, why do we do what we do? What's the connectivity? It has a relevance to technology because technology enables that connectivity. You're right in terms of we can still connect, but with COVID, we're connecting differently. It's via video call instead of in person, and you know, in that coffee shop environment, it's now the virtual aspect. So I love being able to use that technology enablement to have that aspect of connecting people and improving and helping outcomes to improve using a technology base. So that element has always been resonant through my career, and connecting people and having that aspect of helping others for the community. A lot of my focus now is around, you know, the ability to share experiences with people. And I do some, like you mentioned, facilitation. I mentor and coach some people getting into the industry or transitioning in and out of different industries into technology, because ultimately technology is now fundamentally connecting all of us and needed more so now than ever before with COVID-19.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating, isn't it? You see, I was kind of like sitting back the other day and I was thinking about this for some time. And I was thinking about, it seems as though the world's about to go through some pain, right, in the next couple of years. I kind of sense, and I'm kind of like, you know, at the end of that 2 years, will it be a better place for us all to live in? And I've got faith in humanity and the world, even though I've got some massive question marks at the moment. But I see us having a better world to live in a few years' time. Well, I'm hoping that, and it keeps me going. And at the same time, I'm like, but it's technology. It's technology that's going to ride us through and out of this. And it's that forced innovation that so many businesses have been, and humans that we've all been. It's like, whoa, we've got to innovate here. And tech is kind of underpinning all of it. And so it's so timely to have you here talking about transformation of people, because it's happening right now, right? So tech's going to lead us out of it, hopefully to a better world and a better place environmentally, a number of other factors which we won't go into, but all through that transformational change and also the tech that we speak of.
Yeah. As with every element, I think there's good and bad in every aspect. But
Mm.
ultimately, I love the ability of all the opportunities that tech can bring good and improve, and ultimately enable us to take that positive path moving forward. You know, the aspect of, I can see multiple elements of that, you know, where we use technology to improve our outcomes and the way we work and what we do and the way we live. Ultimately, you know, that aspect of how you connect with people can be used with technology and enable those human interactions while we've got social distancing. And how great is that now that we can do it through a virtual screen and see each other, and then use all the elements of new technology to connect in person in virtual reality. Like, how
Yeah.
exciting is that? Even the aspect of, you know, I love looking and keeping an eye on what's going on in the space world, out of this world, of using technology to
Mm.
see what this world becomes and looks like. The endless possibilities and how exciting, but it's on us also to make sure that it's in a positive way for
Yeah.
humankind.
Yeah, yeah. I love your outside. I love your mindset, and staying optimistic through these challenging times. And you know, I speak a lot about things being ecologically sound when making decisions or actions. Is it good for me? Is it good for those around me? Is it good for the greater good? And I think that's the lens and the filter. If we wear that and look at change and innovation down the track, we can go, all right, is it good for me? Is it good for those around me? Is it good for the greater good? Then, yeah, we're good to go, right?
Yeah,
So that's my kind
yeah.
of like ecological check and decision making. So space, tell me about space.
So space, I saw an element of, you know, it's we're not confined to anything other than our own mind, and being creative and innovative and thinking the possibilities and making them happen. So I love that aspect of dream. And I grew up when watching the space shuttle take off, and was lucky enough to work with an employer who I went to America and saw space shuttles land and also take off. So I've
Wow.
always had this element to space. But how cool was it? News today of Virgin Galactica getting their flights ready, where we can take a flight, even though we might not travel domestically or internationally at the moment. You can book a ticket and get your flight to a galactic experience, and that's not that far away. In fact, it's amazing how quick technology can bring aspect of, now we can book flights to take a view of the world from upper space and outer space. So there's no limit to possibilities and achieving dreams. We may need water sources or other planets to visit or live on. And so that element is, I love the aspect of opportunity and possibility, and bring
Mm,
dreams come true, where we see experiences from a different lens. So up
absolutely.
there and out of there, whether it's a flight around the world, it's incredible. And from a real practical situation, people get to work on that technology, and
Mm,
kids get to grow up seeing that space as an element of science, technology, engineering, and maths in the STEM world. That
yeah.
it's not this perception of technology is that IT, computer scientist, or coder. There's so many different elements of technology. From an employment and an economic aspect, the business and government, that brings opportunities to Australians. We're very closely associated in Australia tech industry with the US and NASA environment. So all those
Do
possibilities
tell.
is
Yeah.
what you can have in dreams, or what can be brought in employment, what can um, kids and adults aspire to, of job opportunities or experiences in different elements. And technology is a part of it, but ultimately technology is part of STEM. So science and technology, engineering and maths is an element of what are our lives going to be, and how do we connect with each other, or connect aspect of in this world or out of this world. So it's pretty exciting. I like to keep an eye on what's going on in the space because it's so much changing so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So you follow this with a passion on a regular basis by the sound of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see, and some of those elements of, you know, what the uni students are doing as their pilot projects, or what we in the industry can bring, what that technology element is with quantum computing, or aspects of changing in technology, bringing that. So I do
Yeah.
keep an eye on it in terms of, that's the future.
Yeah.
but that future is not so far away in some elements. So that could
Sure.
be actually part of my own career path of what may be a pathway to look at next with technology and space context.
Yeah.
So I always keep an eye on what's going on in the industry, but this is a passion because I love the aspect of possibilities and opportunities for the future.
Absolutely. I was a young boy and I used to have a book and it was all about space and it showed like the shuttles and everything else. And I used to always be captivated with the parachutes with the astronauts returning to Earth and the shot of them falling into the water. That used to be like, I don't know what it was. It seemed so far removed for somebody to go to space back then or go to the moon yet and then come back. And like now you're talking about Virgin Galactic preparing their shuttles for flights. And I know personally for me, if it's financially viable, I want to go up and have a look back down. I've been high in like an aeroplane, or I've been on top of mountains with a snowboard, and but I actually want to see. Somebody said to me, a pilot, they say until you see the curvature of the Earth from up above, it's fully life changing.
You still think it's flat?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's flat. I know the word's round, right? But to see it, he says it's quite a thing. It's quite a thing.
And they're the possibilities aspect. I think the one thing we haven't invented that I keep saying to my kids is that next generation needs to, Doctor Who did that, or Star Trek, or Star Wars, or Star Trek. They did that element of you could virtually disappear from one place and turn up in another place in this world. So travel is momentary, not hours on a plane for international travel. I so want to be in Italy or US or somewhere in Europe in a matter of minutes, but we still haven't worked out how to do that yet.
Not
trying
yet.
it.
Not yet.
I look forward to those opportunities where travel is instantaneous,
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out. And like, I'm a passionate traveler, and at the moment, unable to travel. Is really challenging. However, I've been able to do so much of it, especially in the last few years. But imagine you've been able to click your fingers and you could be anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. Just go into that phone booth, close the door, press the button, and there you go.
Where would you want to go right now? Like, where's that one spot right now you want to go to, like, and hang out and do whatever you want to do? Like, where is it for you?
Well, I was actually asked that question this morning of favourite country, and to some extent I thought, well, there's a bit of, I always go to the US. I love that place, particularly Colorado. It's my favourite. And I was in Italy just last year, first time. I didn't see enough of Europe yet. I love to go back to England and Ireland and Scotland. So to me, there's not one, there's plenty of experiences, but I definitely miss it. And I'd love to bring it back to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on that flight cycle of how long it takes. So I'm really looking forward to that instantaneous travel aspect.
Sure.
Most of all, if there's one I haven't been, it's space. So I'm looking forward to that.
The space race. I love it. You'll be there, Karen. I can see you, like, when it's time, at the front of the line about to get on, and I'll be like down the back line going, hey, we made it. We can only hope and dream, right? We can only hope and dream. So,
that's right.
So you've worked in a number of different roles, and currently you're at Melbourne Water, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'm doing technology transformation with from an IT perspective with the business in Melbourne Water. So looking at different aspects, water being a utility in the industry. It's a sector I haven't been in before, but also the environment and community element to that. So really from my perspective, it brings together those aspects of skills, passion and purpose. And loving the experience at Melbourne Water, different aspects of what we're doing from a technology change perspective, and also population and environment element to it, but really about the community and how Melbourne Water has fundamental, amazing history in Melbourne, and in having that aspect of water supply, quality, technology that sits all behind that of how does that water come out of your tap in the kitchen? It's actually quite complex behind the scenes.
there's a massive process that goes on about it, which you'll know way more of. I'm a pretty passionate surfer, you could say, and I've surfed a lot down at Gunnamatta on the Mornington Peninsula, where there's the largest effluent outfall in Australia. There, and I used to surf there 25 years. 43, 20 years ago, I sort of started surfing there, and I thought it was amazing. And the water quality at the time, it was treated. However, if you had a northwesterly wind through to southwesterly wind, you could it'd push into the lineup where the waves are breaking, and it was really noticeable. Like the odor, the color, it was really noticeable. And now you go surfing in exactly the same spot, and it's very, very different. It's still treated. It's still the same amount of volume, but the process behind how they're treating it, so that potable level is very, very different. And obviously that's tech driving the process, I'd imagine. And I know a little bit about Melbourne water from that perspective, but there is a whole massive technological process behind the filtration and the treating of the outfalls that we've got, right?
Yeah. I grew up on the farm in the Mallee, so on the river of New South Wales and Victoria, and the water supply only came from the sky. You were reliant on the weather, or maybe some river flows, and the Murray River water supply is very different now. But how does water get from that aspect of supply coming from the source to out of your tap? It is amazing for us. Growing up on the farm taught me a couple of things I reflect back on now. We always knew what the value of water was and how important it is, and that manipulating the supply of water to be sustainable. So I love the fact that I can bring some element of that thought process into this role, but also certainly the aspect of resilience. So change resilience is important in all of our lives, and COVID is teaching us more. Certainly learnt that in growing up on the farm, that you can do whatever you like, but you can never control the weather. So you don't know whether it's going to rain or not, and whether you have any water, and how much water you get in order to supply the sustainability of a business, being farming. So there's elements of experiences that resonate throughout the career, and being able to do that using technology to enhance the outcome, where technology does the aspect of engineering or water supply, pumps, etc. So back then that meant Dad didn't have to get up in the middle of the night to go and put the plug in the drain supply. Now we use technology to do that on the farm, in Melbourne Water, in our industry, across our community.
Yeah, brilliant. And you're also involved with ACS at the moment?
Yeah, so I've ACS being the Professional Association of Australia's ICT sector. I've been involved with them for a few years now, and I serve on their board. We get involved in aspects of the economy from an education perspective, a business perspective, and employment perspective. ACS for me is not just a board role, but it's also a networking. It's about connections of people.
Yeah, sure.
So I play elements of that from my own keeping in contact with others in the industry, and participating or even hosting some of their events, and keep connecting with people to share stories is the biggest thing I love about ACS in that element. Keeping up with what everybody else is doing in their roles or the places they work for.
Sure.
But also that I do some mentoring and coaching with some of the young professionals, those in university, and an element of, you mentioned Michelle before, connecting with people who've become lifelong friends and having a good laugh with.
Yeah, that's it. There's a great bunch in there, isn't there? Like Michelle and Lydia and Maria, who I've been fortunate enough to meet, and it's just a good energy and a good community to be a part of. And the facility, the facility there now as well in Docklands is like unreal. So good to work out of.
Yeah, definitely. The Innovation Hub is a great space and amazing place to connect with. Ironically, it's only a virtual experience at the moment, but definitely the aspect of technology, conversations and people. You know, when I joined ACS, years ago, it was part of university. But I've been in the industry for a long time and only recently, probably 7 odd years ago, joined back to ACS. Well, the transition and change of an industry is, and we still hear it today, isn't ACS that brown cardigan, leather elbow patch type of cohort? You just mentioned all females. We're not all females in the industry at all, but great cohort, definitely changing. Multiply the diversity of the dimensions of gender, age, experience, industry we work in. It's just incredible. I love the fact that that connection side and that networking side brings an element of knowledge and experience and on the job aspects. So it's not the ACS that is known for traditionally. It is an organisation that's 50 years old, over 50 years old, but certainly has changed it in itself and the people that we work with.
Yeah, definitely. And for any of the listeners today, if you're in tech and you're not part of ACS, definitely get involved. There's a pretty modest membership fee for an individual, and a company can join it. But a great organisation, great body to be a part of, that's for sure, especially if you're in tech. Now, you've gone through a transformational journey yourself. You've worked in transformational change in tech, ICT. Listeners out there, anybody going through, about to embark on a project, have you got like a filter or a lens or a methodology, or do this, or 3 steps, 5 steps you can share to provide value to anyone who might be listening today around transformational change and the key elements that you think are important? I'd love to hear.
I think there's an aspect of collaboration which enables success. So if it came down to one thing, I would say the element of leverage collaboration. Because there's so much change going on, nobody can keep up with all the latest aspects. Things change, like methodology or process to follow, or even the steps to follow, but we're not always in sync. Sure. So with collaboration, by that I mean working with others and leveraging others' expertise, having a network to call on, because it might be the first time or that you've been doing it multiple times, but something has changed, guaranteed. At least something has changed in the environment around us. So, accessing that network and the people to talk to, or the expertise and the skills, technology keeps changing. So we're not always up to date, and it's hard to keep up to date with all the elements of how can we do this project or this process in a way that doesn't necessarily mean the same as we've done it before, because now there's a better way to do it, or there's a new technology to use to do it in an automated sense. There's all that element. So I would always say collaboration. Who are you working with? In IT, for example, that could be who you're working with in the business. What is the problem we're trying to solve rather than the solution we have? Before we jump too far in, this is how we do it, because we've always done it like that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty tough call, but something that's becoming more and more common. And ultimately, there are no limits at who to work with to make that happen. It's trying to balance that you don't have too many people and it doesn't take too long, but at the same time, having the right people on the right job at the right time with the right skills.
Yeah.
So in that context, I would say, collaboration is key in order to help it make it easier for yourselves and those you're dealing with process or projects for, your business and your stakeholders, or the customer ultimately that you're serving.
Yeah.
It sounds so easy and so practical, but it's not necessarily the case when you're on the job. Let me tell you that.
That's right. And remember, we're dealing with people. Sometimes I sit there and I think to myself, if the business was full of machines and robots, like some of these challenges, we wouldn't have them. And but then that's the beauty of us as humanity and what we're all about. So let me ask you this question, though. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. A lot of people are quite resistant to change. A lot of people don't operate very well in times of uncertainty. A lot of people don't like it when their back's against the wall. I think you're a little bit like me, where I love uncertainty. I love my back being against the wall, because that's when the best comes out to me, because it's forced to. How would you prepare business, people, organisation for change? A couple of things.
Yeah, look, we're all humans, and there's an element of the change is stepping out of our comfort zone, and that provides a learning environment. So we have something new to learn, and I love learning, and it's always been part of my life and being on the farm or throughout my career. So
Yeah.
I have that element of, yeah, it doesn't feel comfortable, and it's really uncertain, and it's somewhat fearful to some extent because it's not clear, and we don't know the path forward. We're trying to define the path forward. But I actually think that provides the opportunity of, you know, hope in terms of moving past that stage that we all go through as part of the change cycle. The aspect of collaboration is key because for some people it might be change for the first time, but for others they've been through this, and so you can learn off each other and leverage those that have been through it before, or those that have the skills to do it, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
I know it's really tough, right? Everyone's in the aspect of unplanned change. Who would have thought 12 months ago that we were here today? Nobody planned for the aspect of the life we're living at the moment under COVID-19. So there's an element of what you can control and can't control, and planning what you know is potential going to happen or mitigating risk. All of those things come into play, but ultimately working with others in a collaborative environment helps move through change cycles.
Yeah.
You know, they used to say that death and taxes were the things that were guaranteed in life. Well, they've put a third one in there now called change. And it's finding a way to deal with it. And as humans, in a way that we will thrive. But understanding that everybody has their own change journey and their own career journey.
Sure.
And that there's an element of we all go through it different. So being there and support each other. I think COVID has actually brought that really clear for, let's help us all go through this change together, even though we might be going through it in different ways. Some do it really hard than others. So leverage and support each other in the community sense.
It's been really interesting, hasn't it? How so what I'm seeing, and it's my filter and lens of the world, is that people have got different values and different beliefs, and they're pretty openly expressing them, which is amazing. And some of them are different. There's diverse opinions out there, right? However, there seems to be this overwhelming sense of community wrapped about it in your day-to-day dealings. If you go for a walk down the street to a shop to get something to eat, or people just seem to be, I hope, kinder at the moment, or more compassionate, more understanding. And I think, in business, we can raise the bar and push it up and raise our expectations on performance and outcomes and all those type of things. However, at the moment, it's a nice frequency at the moment where people are empathetic of different people's situations and scenarios. And they're probably, hey, you know what? This person at the moment has probably got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and their communication around would be very different to what it would be in normal times. And it's much kinder, and I think it's more effective leadership, even though at the time it might not feel like it. But if we can engage with our teams and the people around us at the heart and core, then that is going to be the thing that sticks us all together and keeps us moving through and beyond, and out of the situation that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I think the element of COVID's really tough time and everyone's facing challenges. But what I think it has done is reminded us to slow down a little bit and focus on the things that really matter. And the community and family, an element of human kindness is really starting to show of what really matters for people. So COVID's kind of helped us slow down because we're on this fast track, keep going, get busy, all the elements of what the world was like as a normal. And now with COVID, it is coming to start being more focused on human beings and what is our purpose and why are we spending our time doing what we're doing? Is it the things that are, to our hearts and minds, or what I say about passion and purpose? Is it really what we want to be spending our lives doing? So I love the fact that, that element of those conversations and sharing values. We're a very diverse industry in some ways. We're a very diverse economy in Australia. And everyone has their own element to that. And it's brilliant to hear. I love hearing the stories, the people stories, and the connections of that. So there's an element of that COVID's helped us to kind of disrupt instead of technology disrupting us. COVID's disrupted us in our lives, and focusing now more on the people dynamic and the human connections and what's important in our lives. That's really great. I think that's good. There's an element of that we probably needed a little reminder of.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it comes at this cost, but it's great to see that. And they're ultimately what we love as human beings, people connections.
Yeah, for sure. I can see why Michelle definitely mentioned for you to come on. You have a beautiful mind, and it's been amazing to actually have a conversation with you today. Just before we're about to wrap up, what's one thing that you might be doing at the moment in business or working from remotely or whatever it might be that you can leave? It's worked really well for you that you think, hey, I reckon this is a little gold nugget that if I share this with a few people, it's going to help other people. What's something that's worked for you in business or in these current times that's working for you? And would you be so free and generous to share that?
Well, I think the compelling thing for me was a light bulb moment in the aspect of busy in career, busy in life, raising kids and getting involved in a number of things. My focus now is more legacy leadership of helping others and giving back and paying it forward. But it's really, the light bulb moment was because I had the experience of skills, passion, purpose model coming into fruition and really making it clear for me of making choices. So how do you balance your day when you're stuck at home working or looking at different opportunities of what's going on in your life? And this model is where three things collide: skills, passion, and purpose. That helps me balance what I do and how I spend my time. So between work and volunteering and supporting others and life and fun and sleep, we all still have to sleep.
Sleep, we do.
That model is really clear for me of how to balance that drives those decisions of where to spend the time. And that includes how long that caught up on the back-to-back video conferences day to day and swapping in and out of that aspect of work and life balance. It's something that's been compelling for me and I share with others as part of mentoring, coaching I do. But it made it really clear because I think it's really hard that nobody changes the 24-hour clock. But we've got to have time to remember to laugh and have fun as well as work and balance life and get some sleep. So to me, that's the one thing that I share that hopefully helps, that reminds us all that there's more to life than just the work and the element of trying to balance that regardless of the circumstances you're living in.
Amazing and an awesome reminder. Karen, thanks so much for coming on the show. You've been awesome.
Love the chat. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure, and look forward to catching you in the flesh sometime soon, right? Hopefully.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.